All right, we're just going to wait a few moments for everyone to settle in. As we're waiting, if you can set in the chat and let us know if you can hear me and if you can see our screen, that would be wonderful. So in the Q&A section there. Wonderful. Thank you for all the confirmations, everyone. We'll wait a few more moments and then we will begin. All right, here we go. We might have some folks trickle in, but that's okay. Welcome, welcome. You are here for the Best Practices for Small Colleges and Universities webinar. We are very excited to have you. Before we get started, we're going to cover a few housekeeping items. So if we can go to the next slide. So as you'll see here, you're going to see that everyone is on automatic mute this morning. So just because we can't hear you doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. So there is a questions icon on the bottom of your Zoom webinar toolbar. So you can submit questions directly to us throughout the webinar. And then we're going to leave some time at the end to get to those questions live. One of the most frequently asked questions is, will I get a copy of the recording? Yes, rest assured the webinar is being recorded and we will be sharing that out for everyone who has registered today. We're also going to ask that you give some grace to our team. There's a lot of people joining today, which is wonderful. But when we have a lot of folks to attend, we get a lot of questions. And so if we don't get to answer all of your questions, please do reach out to your relationship manager or to the support team, and we're happy to help follow up with you. And then after the webinar, you're going to see a quick survey pop up asking you what you thought. We would love to hear from you. And so please fill that out. All right, next slide. So we are going to today talk about the challenges and opportunities that are unique for small colleges and universities. Some of those challenges have been exacerbated, we know, by the global pandemic. So we at Handshake want to share some of the strategies to address those challenges and how we can help you efficiently connect with students and employers. After quick introductions, we are going to cover how to make an impact on students' career journeys when you have a lean team and a limited budget, ways to improve student engagement with your career center and Handshake, and how to increase employer engagement with your current employers and how to find new opportunities for students. And at the end, we will have a Q&A. So a quick introduction and hello from the folks presenting today. My name is Chelsea and I'm joined by my colleagues, Scott and Gabe.
Hi everybody, Scott here.
Hey everyone, this is Gabe.
And we are education relationship managers here at Handshake. So we might work with some of you here today. So if so, hello. And we're excited to share some of our tips and tricks. I am now going to hand it off to Scott to get us started.
Hi everybody, and a special hello to any of my partners who are on the call. Okay, so before we jump into things and before we talk about how to best leverage Handshake with limited staff and resources, I want to draw your attention to a couple themes that you're going to be hearing throughout the presentation today. The first theme is the importance of using the assets that we have built out for you in your research. We have a bevy of resources for you to lean on so that you're not feeling like you need to recreate the wheel every time you want to send some outreach to your students or in employers. The second theme is the importance of using dashboards to gain insights. You're going to hear all three of us talk a lot about dashboards today, and that should really be a signal to you that dashboards are really useful and really merit your attention weekly, if not daily. And the third and final theme is targeting specific segments of students and employers in your outreach. And if you aren't familiar with what a segment is, don't worry, you're going to leave this webinar with a much better understanding of what we're talking about when we say segments. And so with that, let's talk about Handshake with limited staff and reduced budgets. So there are really three specific topics that I want to draw your attention to here for the next few minutes. The first one is training your student workers. The second one is how to automate the simple stuff and really plan out your workflow so it saves you time. And the third is using pre-built Handshake resources like the blog, your dashboards, and your marketing toolkit and the virtual affair launch kit to make your job easier. So let's talk a little bit about training student staff. If you don't already have student staff assisting you in your office, you may be wondering how they can really help you maximize your use of Handshake. We see a lot of smaller and one-person offices bring in student workers, one or more of them, to assist with day-to-day operations in Handshake. So we tend to see a lot of people have student workers set up and provide virtual fare support, close out appointments at the end of the day or at the end of the week, manage labels, approve jobs and employers if auto approvals aren't set up, and really a whole lot more. I really encourage you to get creative with your student staff. If you have student staff or if you're thinking about bringing them on, you find out what their interests are, find out what skills they're trying to learn, and then work with them on bridging that gap between like what they're doing in Handshake and what they're interested in, so it really is beneficial for both sides. Perhaps the fastest way to get students up to speed and helping you in Handshake is by asking them to leverage or to run your social media strategy. I think we all know that young people are really experts with social media, so asking them to leverage your social media and really manage that is a great idea, and there's a lot of upside there. For those of you who already have student workers or maybe have the headcount to hire them in the future, training them and bringing them up to speed is really going to be your #1 priority. I recommend requiring all of your student workers to complete our newest Handshake Academy course called New to Handshake as their entry point into the administrative side of Handshake. One of my favorite resources in this New to Handshake course is the social media best practices PDF that we have. As I mentioned earlier, social media is like a very quick way that you can have student workers assist you on the daily. So I highly encourage them to check that out. And then once your student staff has completed this course, they'll have a really solid understanding of the career services side of the platform, and then they'll be best prepared to dive into other aspects and of the platform and different features that you may be interested in having them assist you with. And this course, I just want to point out, the New to Handshake course isn't just for student workers. It's for anybody who's new to Handshake and will really be beneficial for anyone who wants kind of like a refresher on Handshake. Okay, let's talk about automations. So we at Handshake know how busy all of you are. So we have provided you with the ability to automate certain workflows that we know can be time consuming and repetitive. So it would really behoove you to set up auto approval for new employers, new jobs, and events, because that's like a very easy way to spend a lot of time daily improving those manually. If you find yourself leveraging filters for various aspects of your work, whether that be for like managing students, inviting employers to fairs, or even reviewing jobs, setting up saved filters for the most commonly used filters or searches that you use can save you a lot of time. Saved filters allow you to quickly get data in 1 or 2 clicks instead of having to remember what data you pulled last time and in which filters that required you to select. Lastly, auto syncing your student file is a must. Save yourself some time and energy up front by asking your IT team to set up auto sync so that you aren't having to go to them monthly or at the end of each semester to ask them to import new student data. Another benefit of setting up the auto sync is that you only have to worry about updating your seniors, your graduating seniors, to alumni at the end of the year. And with that, we're going to have a quick poll.
Yes, we have come to our first poll. We would love to know how you all are using automation right now, if you are. So has your office set up auto approvals for employers or job postings? So the answers are yes, we're using both. Maybe we're only auto approving jobs, only auto approving employers, or not yet, but we're thinking about it. Seeing these results trickle in. We've got 70% of the vote in. Looks like we've got 74% of folks who voted. So we're seeing that 47% of folks have said not yet, but we'll consider it. So if you haven't done this yet, or there's some barriers that are keeping you from doing any automation in your office, please feel free to reach out to your relationship manager. They would love to talk to you about this and to think through any of the concerns you might have. We also see that we've got 19% of folks who are doing both, 22% just for jobs, and 12% who are just doing employers. So great for us to have some of that information so that we can better help you in the future.
Okay, so with that, let's talk about making a plan and sticking with it. Regardless of whether or not you plan to use auto approvals, it's imperative to create a schedule for completing tasks and updating data in Handshake. It's really easy to push tasks aside until next month or next semester. So your future self will really thank you for creating a schedule and sticking to that schedule. And so what does that look like? It starts with identifying the tasks you need to complete. For example, are you using the appointment feature? Who's making sure each appointment has been completed at the end of the day or at the end of the week? Also, is that when you want to be updating or closing out those appointments? How about document review? How regularly should that be taking place? And who is responsible for ensuring that it gets done? We've also noticed that a lot of schools rarely send the activation email to unactivated students after their initial launch. So consider sending a monthly activation email and scheduling that to be sent out from the targeted email feature. Also make a reminder on your calendar to remind you to do that. And in addition to that, you can also opt into our activation email campaigns. So I encourage you to do what works best for you in terms of creating a plan and sticking to it, but scheduling time on your calendar to complete tasks on a regular basis will keep you honest. So it's really a good idea. And the great thing about scheduling tasks on your calendar is that you can add in any descriptions of what needs to be done. And if you have other teammates, you can invite them to those calendar invites so that you know exactly who's completing what and when that's getting done. So I think a great example of that is maybe you create a calendar invite for, at the end of the semester, you and your teammates need to reach out to the IT team about transferring alumni or senior students to alumni. So that's a great way to go about doing that. So now let's talk about putting it all together. You'll recall at the beginning of this section, I highlighted the 3 themes to focus on. So I really just want to double down on those themes now. Can we get the next slide, please? Thank you. The Handshake blog is pure gold. There is something in there for everybody. So save yourself time and energy and stay in front of your students and employers by sharing the resources that we have in the blog. 2 of my favorite resources for students in the Handshake blog are the 3 must-haves to get hired on your profile and the set up your Handshake profile with our easy weekly challenge. It just really gets out there and helps students stay on top of creating or keeping their profile up to date and being relevant for employers. The next thing you're going to want to do is visit your Who's Hiring dashboard in your employer messaging dashboard regularly to see which employers are messaging your students. If you aren't familiar with the Who's Hiring dashboard, don't worry. Gabe is going to be taking us through a deep dive of that in just a couple minutes here. Finally, you're going to want to use the targeted email feature to email students in the majors and industries that employers are messaging to. So if you've got employers from the tech industry or maybe the healthcare industry who are already messaging your students, you're going to want to leverage that information in targeted emails to specifically email those segments of students. You can also really double down on that and on the fear of missing out by emailing the students who haven't completed their profile by saying, hey, these employers are really trying to, or these employers are messaging our students now. You're really missing out by not completing your profile. So follow these tips for completing your profile so that you are more likely to get messaged. Chelsea is going to be talking more about the resources available to you and how to really effectively utilize those resources to conduct outreach. So with that, I'm honored to present the amazing Chelsea.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everybody. So now that Scott has shared some ways to streamline your workflows, we want to dig into more detail on how you can improve student engagement. In this section, we're going to discuss how you can engage students and best utilize Handshake to support them in their career journey. Next slide. So we believe that it's beneficial to your team to use targeted outreach. And while it can take a bit of additional time to craft separate messages or send specialized content, it generally yields greater results. And so if this is a new process for your team or this sounds a bit scary, we understand, but we want to suggest this to you still and to say start small and build from there. When you're thinking about reaching out to students, whether you're thinking about sending out jobs to them, newsletters, whatever the case is, the first step is to identify the populations of students that you want to focus on. On the Manage Students page, there are filters that pre-exist, such as majors or school year, and that's a great way to get started. And then you can also, if you want to take it to the next level, use labels to segment students. And by segment, we just mean to get a population or smaller group of students that have similar characteristics. So once you've identified those students on the Manage Students page, you can easily start an email right from there, and then that will go right to the targeted email section. On the targeted emails page, you can easily use our Handshake templates or any of the promotional materials that we have prepared for you, and you can use that to share Handshake content, as you can see in this screenshot here. So you can attach jobs, you can attach events, anything you would like to promote. And once you've outlined the types of emails you want to send out, this can become a pretty quick process for you. So it'll allow you to diversify your reach and provide curated content for students with a few clicks. So here are a few other examples where you can reach out to students and templates that you can use to make it a very smooth process. Next page. In addition to sending out jobs and events to segments of students, it's also extremely beneficial to create specialized events and fairs for subsets of your student population. So hopefully you all know about our virtual fair tool this year. Hopefully some of you got to try it out. And for the next step, we would really encourage you to try to create industry-focused fairs or other specialized focus fairs. Handshake makes it very easy and smooth for you to connect your students with interested employers with this virtual fair platform. So if you haven't taken a look, please do. And when we found that if you specialize these fairs, for example, making them industry specific, students have more connections and find more relevant employers. We also have found that students are more likely to attend these fairs when they're geared towards their specific interests. So we know that it can be daunting to host events, and we know that this can be a big undertaking, but the beauty of virtual fairs is that it often requires fewer staff because students and employers have schedules that are preset. So the day of, you're just there making sure everything's going smoothly. And if you are feeling concerned about getting any of this set up, we have pre-made materials in our virtual fair launch kit. So we have templates, checklists, and we have office hours where you can ask questions directly. We want this to be as low lift as possible for you all with very high reward. So we'd love for you to try it out. And you'll see that once you've hosted one or two, you can use the same sort of template and outline for the others that you start to specialize for other industry populations. And then one additional benefit for hosting fairs in Handshake is that 50% of fair attendees of students who attended then go in to view an employer, browse a job, or apply within 2 weeks post-fair. So that's fantastic because it shows students are going to see the benefits of Handshake, get in there and connect with your career center. And it's a great way to make it sticky for them. Next slide. Another fantastic way to connect with students is to leverage social media. Handshake has a diverse amount of digital content in the Handshake marketing toolkit. So Scott mentioned that earlier, and we're always adding more. You're seeing this on our page right here. This is an Instagram Live. And so there are stories you can use, and you can also think about keeping this manageable for your team by using this as a student worker task. They can manage your social account and share timely how-tos, student stories, or even market your team's events. We've also linked out a case study here from the College of New Jersey that shows how they increased their social media following by 600% just within 2 years. So when we send these slides, you're going to have all of these links included, and you can check that out. You can also leverage employer relationships and feature those on social platforms. So we've seen folks do Instagram takeovers, and this is where employers share an Instagram live of a day in the life or discuss company culture or talk about their role. And this is a great way to get students interested, and they can also understand a little bit more about what employers are doing. You can also feature employer collateral on any of the platforms. And you can use this as a sponsorship option too if you want to get a little bit of additional funds for your team. And if you're also thinking about other content to share via Instagram, websites, or newsletters, we strongly suggest our blog posts. They're filled with quick stats and tips and tricks to navigate remote internships or making the most of virtual events. So moving on to the next slide, we have our final tip for you. And that is for improving student engagement with pre-existing relationships that students already have on campus. So again, we want to think about how this can be low lift for your team, how you can really leverage what already is there. We know that students have much of their day with their professors and often look to them for guidance. So if you can start to connect with faculty and ask them to help promote Handshake, this can be an effective message to interest your students. We've also seen something try where it's called don't cancel class. And so if a professor is going to be out sick, letting them know that they can reach out to you and you can actually spend some of that time in the class with students, sharing a bit about Handshake or your career services team. Additionally, many students are engaged with social clubs or organizations. We've seen that there are very strong partnerships that can be fostered here. So if you sponsor events for these clubs, or if you have, just a section of an event once we have live events again, you can do an activation station or a chance for them to get to meet the career services staff. This can cut down the work of your team, and you can not have to create wholly new events for them. Instead, you can partner with others. Meeting students where they're at is a very effective way to increase engagement. And then finally, embedding Handshake in your students' college lives is really important from day one. So we really encourage you to think about doing this with your orientation team, seeing if you can present during orientation, or even just asking some of the orientation leaders to share some of how they're using Handshake or promote your career services team. And then if you have a relationship with alumni, that's another wonderful way to get students engaged and learning from the folks who've come before them. So putting it all together, we have a wonderful case study from Haverford, and I'm not going to dig into that here, but it talks about all of these tips and tricks and how they've made an impact for their student engagement. So now I will let Gabe take it away.
Thanks, Chelsea. Once again, my name is Gabe Dobson, and I'm a relationship manager on the Education Success team. And today I wanted to talk about ways to increase employer engagement within Handshake. So piggybacking off something that Chelsea said, the first way is connecting with your former alumni. When our employer partners sign up for their Handshake accounts, they're prompted to enter their alma mater. And we know that a great way to get your students engaged in Handshake is by creating powerful connections with alumni. They're able to select that their alma mater was your university, and you can easily find this information in your Handshake account. So to find your alumni partners, you'll navigate to your contacts, and here you'll see a filter tab, and you'll filter by source. You'll then select alumni, and any of your alumni contacts will then show up, which will make it easy to connect with them in Handshake. We recommend that you do this at a regular cadence, whether that be a monthly, quarterly, or each semester, because as new employer partners are signing onto the platform, new alumni are always being added to your instance. Another great way to connect with our employer partners is our 500 employers who are currently hiring. Our new now hiring list is updated monthly, and it provides 500 employers that you can add to your instance for current job openings. What I really love about it is it's filterable by industry and by location. There are several options that you can filter to manage your search. So on my screen here, you can see that you can filter by industry to locate relevant industries to your students. You can also search by jobs or internships. And one that I know is often relevant to our regional university colleges and universities is by searching by state. This will bring up any opportunities that are available within your state that you can then show students. Next, I wanted to talk about the Who's Hiring dashboard. Scott made mention of this earlier, and the Who's Hiring dashboard is a really powerful tool that allows you to get a lot of employer information in one great report. So I'm going to do a live demo of that. In order to navigate to your Who's Hiring dashboard, you'll click on the Analytics section in Handshake, and then you'll click on Dashboards from within Analytics. There, you'll find a tab for Who's Hiring, and it will offer you insight into employers that are posting jobs. In addition to our Who's Hiring dashboard, we also want to call out our employer messaging dashboard. Our employer messaging dashboard gives you information into employers that are actively reaching out to your students so that that can help you further those connections with employers that are actively seeking your students. So right now I'm going to stop my screen share because I'm going to go into Handshake to do a live demo of our Who's Hiring dashboard. All right, so now we are in our Who's Hiring dashboard. The first thing that I wanted to call out on the Who's Hiring dashboard is this time window start. This is always going to default to 30 days, but you can actually edit this. The minimum amount of days has to be 7, but you can edit it to see additional information or to target specific weeks. Additionally, the first thing that you'll see on the Who's Hiring dashboard is an overview of your trends. This shows you the number of employers with active jobs posted within the time frame that you've selected. In my time frame, that was 30 days, so this is the number of active jobs posted within the past 30 days. It also shows you the number of employers that have independently messaged your students. I'm only going to call out certain areas, but you'll see that we have quite a bit of information in our Who's Hiring dashboard. But the next area that I wanted to call out was our remote jobs available for students. We know that during the pandemic, many students are looking for remote opportunities, and this report shows you employers that you're connected with and the available opportunities that they have. This allows you to target those employers or send these opportunities directly to students by using segments and our targeted email tool that Chelsea referred to. But the reports that I think give you the biggest bang for your buck are under our job postings. Here you'll find the 500 most recently posted full-time, part-time, and internship opportunities. This is a great way for you to drive targeted email opportunities to your students. And these are also sortable. So you can sort by industry, by employer, and as well as posting date. I really love the posting date here because you know exactly when these jobs were posted. So as you're sending them to students, you know that they're fresh opportunities. You'll also see those for our part-time and internships here. I really love it for internships because as students look for internship opportunities for the spring and the summer, this is a really great way to drive those students and to also reach out to employers that have internship opportunities to get them in front of your students for events or the virtual fair. So that's a quick demo of our Who's Hiring dashboard and the impactful information that you can get there. Now I'm going to switch back to our presentation. And a poll.
All right, we have our next poll. The question here is, do you plan to host a virtual fair on Handshake this spring? We see the options there below. And then the second question there is, do you plan to host a virtual fair with another school this spring? So a twofer there. We'll wait a few moments. All right, 80% of the votes in. And we're seeing already that looks like most folks have already created a fair, which is very exciting to see. And it looks like just a few have not. All right, yep. So we see 58% of folks have already created a fair, 167 schools. So that's wonderful to hear. A few are planning to create the fair later. That's totally fine. And then when it looks to about hosting with others, we see 30% of you are planning to host with another school, and then some are not sure. And it looks like 42% are not hosting a fair. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. All right, Gabe, are you on mute?
I was. Thank you, Chelsea. Sorry about that, y'all. Last but not least, I wanted to talk to you all about participating in multiple school fairs. So multiple school fairs allow you to engage employers by having a variety of students attend and a variety of majors available. It also allows you to leverage multiple employer networks to really attract student engagement. It exposes employers to students that they may not have engaged with, and it also gives students exposure to employers they may not have engaged with. And it allows employers to recruit from a larger pool of students. Another really great aspect that we've been seeing internally is it allows career services teams to work collaboratively together to really develop tools and systems in place to have multiple employers and students engage with one another. So I wanted to share a quote from one of our career services partners that had a multiple school fair this fall. And it says, the ability to have fairs with our partner institutions has been a game changer, especially in this virtual environment. We've been able to leverage new employer relationships with our team, as well as create new opportunities for our students to engage with employers. For us, the multi-school fair has great potential into the future as we're able to do new innovative programming with schools across the country. So with that, we'd like to open it up for questions.
All righty. So we have some questions coming in here. Want to make sure that we can address as many as possible. So we have a nice chunk of time for that. Let's see what we've got. Before we start with questions, I do want to reiterate, Gabe was just talking about fairs and doing multi-school fairs. Would love if you try those out, and a great chance to try it because fairs are going to continue to be free moving forward. So we would love for you to try it out. And so the next question here, what permissions should student workers be granted to use all of these resources? Do we create an admin CS account for them? So there is actually a great Help Center article about this, and we can share this, I believe, in the chat for you all. But this is something maybe Gabe will be able to share his screen to show that too. But we actually give advice for the settings that you can actually share when it comes to staff roles. And we have one specifically for student workers and student employees that give suggestions there. So giving them kind of view only access and not necessarily giving them access to any of the sensitive information is what we generally suggest there. And that'll be shared with you afterwards. Another question here, how frequently are most schools auto-syncing data? So with that, it kind of does depend on the school. Scott, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I do. So what I hear from a lot of folks is that they try to update their data at least once a semester, usually at the beginning of the semester. However, if you have programs or courses where, for example, internships are starting like at kind of strange times throughout the course of the semester or the year, that's more reason to set up your auto sync cadence to be maybe monthly or even weekly. At the end of the day, it is up to you. And I think if you wanted to be really safe, you could set it up to be monthly. But if you don't have a specific reason for that, then once a semester is totally acceptable.
Yep, and depending on what those auto syncs are set up for, we have some folks doing it daily, we have some folks doing it weekly. So I would talk with your IT team and see what seems feasible for them. All right, and another one for you, Scott, for your section. Is it possible to automate or auto-approve internships and fellowships, but not jobs?
Unfortunately, that is not possible. You would, in turning on the auto approve jobs feature, it would approve everything and not allow you to select certain internships or fellowships.
Yeah. And then we have a question saying, what are some suggested labels that go beyond majors and class year for students? So great question. This can really be up to your university and how you think about connecting with students. You can use data about which students maybe need more outreach if you're looking at majors. But if you're looking beyond that, we sometimes have schools labeling by organization and student groups. So if you're looking for women engineers and you want to make sure that you're sending information out to those students. We also have folks who are labeling students by their status. So maybe first generation students or veteran students. Really, you can think as outside the box as you'd like. It's just about making sure that all the students that need support are getting it. And then we have another question here. Do most campuses give faculty access to Handshake? So this is, I don't know if there's most here. And in general, what we would say is you don't give them a career services account, but you can give them a student account. And the reason that we can suggest this sometimes is because they don't normally need to be in there doing what you're doing, looking at data. What they often want to do is see what the students are seeing and be able to understand what the jobs look like and so on. So we do have an article on that too that we can send you, and that's a great way to give faculty a chance to see what's going on without giving them additional permissions. Let's see, what else? Can students search for alumni contacts? So this is something, Gabe, can you speak to this?
Yeah, so alumni contacts are only visible for our career services users. So students wouldn't be able to search for those contacts, but you would be able to, after you add them, you would be able to reach out to them and get their direct email address and then send it to a student for them to connect with that contact.
Yes.
Another option there, if I understood the question correctly, is you can actually label those employers, those alumni employers, with a public label so that students will be able to search on that alumni contact label from the job search feature and quickly find those people.
Yep. And one final option is in Handshake, we have a peer messaging tool. And so students can click on the student section and they can filter for alumni, and they can actually find alumni and message those alumni and talk to them and even start kind of a conversation going about their experiences. All right. Within the Who's Hiring dashboard, do we only see companies that our school is connected with, or do we have visibility to all companies within Handshake? So, Gabe, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, that the Who's Hiring dashboard is going to be pulling from companies that you are already connected with. So that is going to be companies that are already connected with your instance.
Exactly. So it's great because you know that if you're sharing those jobs, if you're sharing roles with students, those are live and accurate for your students. And one other thing I wanted to make sure kind of adjacent to that is our employer messaging dashboard. I know we briefly talked about that, but it is our new dashboard and it's a great way to see how employers are connecting with your students already. And in particular, I think it can be nice because you can start to see, okay, which employers specifically are reaching out to my students and what's the interest there. You can see the click rates. And then you also are able to scroll down and see the messages coming to your students by major. And that can be helpful because you can see which majors are of great interest to employers. And then you can also see maybe some of the majors that aren't getting as much love. And you could maybe think about for your targeted outreach, reaching out to some of those students to send events or send jobs that would help them out. And with multiple school fairs, what feedback have you received about these fairs creating competition for our students? Gabe, would you like to share what you've heard about that? And we can all kind of pitch in what we've heard about.
That's a great question. I haven't heard anything about competition for students. Scott or Chelsea, have you all heard any feedback around that?
I haven't. I've actually only heard that it's been a benefit for students because they're seeing more employers than they might normally get to see because it's sourcing more employers because they know that there are many students that are there. So I think that when we think about competition, we know those employers are already recruiting at multiple schools, and we know that those jobs are already posted multiple places. So just because you can't see competition doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So this is kind of just leveling the playing field, making sure everyone's in one spot and having a chance to connect with employers live. Scott, anything to add there?
I would agree with everything that's been said. I have heard a couple schools bring this up as well. I don't think there's any data to suggest that there's as much competition as everybody thinks, but if it's a concern, you can consider inviting fewer schools, but I don't really know that it's going to have that great of an impact.
Yeah, because those folks are already having their own fairs. So this is just a chance for you to be in one place, have as many employers as possible, and make sure students have the chance to connect. All right. This next one is there any way to block an employer from reaching out to students? So yes, there's not a way for you to specifically reach out, but we have lots of safety features already involved to make sure that this is a safe environment for students to get messages. So if you've approved them, they will be able to proactively reach out. For premium folks, they have different campaigns that they can send. For core employers, they're able to send individual messages up to 100 per hiring season. And then we have the ability to make sure that the students are staying safe because the employers have to have an 80% trust score or above to reach out to them. And let's see here. Is there a particular strategy for smaller campuses to better engage with employers to recruit with us specifically for job fairs? Truly, I think that multi-school fair is a great tactic, to be honest, because it's a way to share the load, make sure that you're having employers join. We know that some of the recruiters are stretched a bit thin this year, recruiting virtually. So this is a great way to make sure that you can have everyone sourced in one place. Anyone else have ideas there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One thing that I've recommended to some of my partners is a couple things. The first one is to find employers that you are not already connected with in Handshake, pre-approve them, and then send them an email saying, "Hey, I just pre-approved you at your school name," and then you can say, "We're holding this event or this fair on this date. We would love for you to join. Are there any specific roles you're hiring for, or are you looking for any specific type of student that we can try to get to the fair so that you can connect with them?" So it's kind of just more of like a tailored outreach. I know that you may not have the bandwidth for that, but I do think it would go a long way.
And just to connect that with that who's hiring dashboard, you'll see lots of national employers on that dashboard. So that could be a really great way, a really great place to start as you think about national employers to connect with for that outreach.
Alrighty, and did want to just shout out a great comment that we had from one of the folks in the chat here from Sarah. She said, "We host a collaborative fair and it's a benefit to all. To employers, you get more potential talent. To students, they get access to more employers live, and even if there's more than one school present. And career services, we share the workload for the fair and offer an efficient, cost-effective option for our partners." So just something we wanted to share your way. Let's see. Any other questions, folks? How can we make connections with other schools for multi-school fairs? Great question there. So we want you to think about all sorts of things. If there's, certain industries that you're hoping to recruit from and you're a similar institution. So I've seen, liberal arts institutions join together. I've seen folks who are regionally getting together, and to just reach out to the career service partners, to your friends, to folks you know, and say, hey, would you like to join in this fair together? So I think that is a good starting point. But we do definitely suggest that you don't just add folks to your multi-school fair. You really should get permission and make sure that you're all on the same page. Anyone else have any other ideas there when it comes to making connections with their schools?
I have seen several partners of mine reach out to other schools in like a 10-mile radius or what they also might consider like a local school close to them to orchestrate a larger fair, multi-school fair. But other than that, I haven't seen too much. Then again, there are some schools who already have relationships with other schools. So if you're looking to make those relationships, I would recommend first reaching out to the schools who are closest to you to see if you guys can do like a regional fair of some kind.
Great. And another question we have, is it better to create a Handshake account for companies or let them create their own account? Do you have a strategy that works better? So we definitely suggest having employers from the beginning taking ownership in their journey. We have a lot of resources out there, and the Help Center is available, as well as support available to employers when they're getting started. We have some quick videos about getting started. So what I would do generally is share those resources to them, have them get started, and also share the support link so that they can reach out to our support team and help them in getting started there. All right. Another question here. How and when can we get those insights from university partners as a whole as to why they're declining employers? This would make me feel more confident in setting up more widely used auto approvals. Good question there.
So as far as I'm aware, you will not be able to see the reasons that other schools have chosen for declining those other employers unless they were to flag the employer, and then you would be able to see the reason that they gave for flagging the employer. But just like across the board, you're not going to be able to see all the data related to why specific schools decline specific employers. Correct me, Gabe or Chelsea, if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that's the case.
Yeah, that is right. You can always reach out to the employer and ask them more questions, whatever your criteria are, to make sure that you're feeling comfortable. But you won't be able to understand specifically what's going on. All right, we have another comment about fairs. So, really pumping up the fairs, but truly it's just because it is a big time save for you and it can really help your students in their career journey. A comment from Jessica saying, we leverage multiple school events specifically for smaller programs in order to better recruit employers we normally wouldn't attract for an event. So again, a way to get new employers, more employers. And then Meredith shared, this isn't a question, but sharing in case it's helpful. A larger university in our city wasn't open to co-sponsoring a fair, but they did open their fair to our students 3 days in advance. This option allows their students to register first and our students to fill the slots that likely would have stayed open. And our students still got access to employers they wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, that is an interesting one. I haven't heard about that before. Thanks, Meredith. All righty. And it says, if you are collaborating on a fair and are not the main school host, how can you see which of your students are going and who they're talking to besides asking the main school? So that is the key way to do it. You do need to ask the main school. We generally suggest making sure that you've touched base with whoever the host is. Usually if there's more than two schools having a kind of group that is taking action together. And so meeting, once a month leading up to it, and weekly as is possible before the fair launches. And that person can share the CSV of all the students who have registered, and then afterwards they can share who attended and checked in. So that we just want to ensure there's open communication there. That is the best way. Is there a way to see all companies who are part of the Handshake network so we can invite them to connect with our school? Great question there. So in the employers section, you can go to Find Employers. And in that Find Employers tab, it's up at the top right, you can actually start to search proactively for other employers. So you can go in and do filters for industry or by name if there's someone you're looking for in particular. And then you can proactively engage with them, and they will be able to join you, and you can invite them to the fair or anything else. As we're seeing if any other questions come in, wanted to share again that all of the things that we shared today will be sent to you. This deck will be sent to you, and that includes many, many links, including case studies and the virtual fair launch kit and marketing toolkit. Everything in there will be available to you. And so you'll have all of your resources in one easy place. And then as always, if anything sparked more questions for you that we didn't get to today, please feel free to reach out to your relationship manager, or you can also reach out to support, and we'd be happy to help you dig into this and address this, any of the questions you have, or getting started with any of these great tips and tricks. And we got another question here. Is there a guide for the communications that Handshake sends to students and employers registered for virtual fairs? Frequency, timing of messages, content focus, etc. Yes. So we actually have 2 articles that tell you the notifications that are going out both to employers and to students. So we can send that your way. And that's a great way of knowing exactly what the content is, and it'll let you know everything there. And then also, if you go to the virtual fair toolkit, you should see those as help articles and lots of other content as well. Right. So we will begin to wrap up here. But again, we will be sending out all of these slides. We'll be sending out the recording, and we're excited to help you on your journey to making sure you can connect with your students, make the most of your team and your use of Handshake, and engage with more employers. So thank you all so much for attending today. And again, you can reach your relationship managers to answer any other questions you might have. Thanks, everybody.